So in this video today, we are going to be talking about Airbnb and more specifically, whether or not Airbnb is safe as somebody booking reservations through the Airbnb app. Now, personally, I've been using Airbnb for the last 2 years or so. I am both an Airbnb host and an avid user of the Airbnb platform. And so pretty much I use this app exclusively now whenever I am traveling. So I've stayed in over 24 different Airbnbs. So I have a fair amount of experience to share with you guys, and we're going to talk about both my good experiences as well as my bad experiences. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to give you guys some tips as a first-time Airbnb user if you're looking to be as safe as possible while using Airbnb. Now that being said, guys, if at the end of this video you decide that you want to try out Airbnb for yourself, there's a link down in the description below where you can get a completely free $40 Airbnb credit towards your first reservation. Now, full transparency, guys, if you do use that link, I will also earn a small Airbnb travel credit, so it's a way to give back to me for putting this video together. All right, now first of all, what I want to talk about here are the pros of Airbnb and why I prefer using Airbnb over a hotel. Now, first of all, what I have found to be the case is that these Airbnbs are in more desirable locations when you are traveling. So think about it this way, hotels are often restricted to certain areas based on zoning, and so you oftentimes have better locations when you book an Airbnb in someone's home or somebody's apartment. So for example, when I traveled to Seattle, I booked an Airbnb and I was in a really great location right near the downtown, and I was more centrally located than I would have been if I simply booked a hotel. Another reason why I like Airbnb is that I have personally found it to be cheaper than booking hotel accommodations. Now, this may not always be the case, but what I recommend people do is at least compare the two and look at the price for a hotel versus a comparable Airbnb in a similar location. And I also like the idea of supporting actual families and personal people rather than supporting large hotel chains, because when you use Airbnb, the money goes mostly to the host. A small portion does go to Airbnb for providing the service, but I like the idea of supporting families and individuals rather than big corporate hotel chains. Now that being said, guys, there are some cons to using Airbnb, and I want to share those with you now. First of all, the biggest one that I have found is that looks can oftentimes be deceiving. And what I mean by that is you may find a listing where the photos are beautiful and it looks like this spacious, beautiful house or apartment, only to find that it's actually not that big or it's in a really bad location. So personally, guys, about 1.5 years ago, I booked an Airbnb in Washington, D.C., and based on the pictures, it looked like a really beautiful apartment. And I will say this, the apartment itself was very nice, it was totally clean, and the host even left out some muffins and some coffee grounds and different added items that were a total perk. The only downside was the location was horrible because we were smack dab right in the middle of a lot of public housing. So what I will say is this, when you are booking an Airbnb, don't just look at the photos because looks can be deceiving. You should also look at the map of where this Airbnb is and consider the location and whether or not this is a good area of the city or a bad area. And then the only other bad experience I have ever had with Airbnb is when I had a host cancel my reservation on me. Now this happens very infrequently. Like I've said, I've booked over 24 Airbnbs, some through my account, some through my girlfriend's or my friend's accounts where I pitched in, and we've only ever had one cancellation, and it actually happened to me just recently on my trip to Cancun. So essentially what happened is the night before my reservation, I reached out to the host because I hadn't heard from him, and he said, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to host you. You're going to have to call Airbnb and cancel your reservation." Now, I will say this, I called Airbnb. The process was very simple. I got a full refund and I got a free travel credit equivalent to 10% of the cost of my total reservation. So overall, I was pretty happy with that because I got all of my money back and a free travel credit towards my next stay. And so what I did instead is I ended up just booking a resort rather than using Airbnb in Cancun, but that's the only time I've ever had that happen to me personally on Airbnb. Now, it does happen sometimes where a host does end up canceling on you, but it is very bad for them and it hurts their reputation on Airbnb. So it is not something that happens often, and if it does, that is not going to be a very popular listing on Airbnb. So now what I want to do, I want to jump onto the Airbnb website and see what it is that they are saying about the safety of Airbnb. So according to the Airbnb website, over 2 million people stay in an Airbnb in over 100,000 cities every single night. And they have multiple systems in place to ensure safety of both the guest and the host throughout the entire process. This includes risk scoring of each new listing before approval. So they have a number of different risk factors that they look for, and if they see that this risk score is at a high level, they will investigate the listing beforehand and make sure it is safe, or they will also flag listings that are potentially unsafe. There are a number of scams out there on Airbnb where people will oftentimes have a fake listing and then last minute they will put you in a different listing and they'll say, oh, there was a leaky pipe or a broken toilet. But they really are cutting down on a lot of this because that just degrades the overall quality of the platform. And at the end of the day, if people don't trust Airbnb, nobody is going to use it. So I strongly believe that Airbnb is very careful about their reputation and making sure to minimize these instances of people using the platform to conduct scams. They also have wait lists and background checks for both hosts and guests on the platform, and they also have a number of other privacy steps for communications and payments throughout the app. So that being said, guys, now what I want to do, I want to cover some tips I have for you if you're brand new to Airbnb, a little bit skeptical or nervous about whether or not it's safe. These are my personal tips based on my experience. Number one, above all else, this goes for everybody, always conduct your communication with a host and your payments through the Airbnb app. Never send somebody a PayPal payment directly or anything like that. You always want to communicate and do payments through the app. That way you are protected by Airbnb under their insurance and under their payment protection and all of those guarantees. So never send somebody money outside of the app or communicate outside of the Airbnb app. The only exception to that rule would be if you have to call your host on the phone. Obviously you will have to call them directly, but other than that, any back and forth messaging communication should always be done in the Airbnb app. Number two, don't travel alone. If you're somebody who's a solo traveler and you're skeptical and you've never used Airbnb, at least the first couple of times, do it with a friend or a family member. That way you have less reservations and you're not nervous about the process. The third thing I would recommend is not to book a place with less than 10 reviews. You don't want to book a place that has no reviews or maybe 1 or 2. If you're brand new to this and you're nervous, I would only book places with 10 reviews or more. And I would also recommend that you do not book a place with less than a 4.8 star review because at the end of the day, most people leave a 5-star review for Uber and Airbnb, and they're only going to leave 4 stars or less if there's some kind of problem. So look for many reviews, dozens of reviews is better, and a rating of 4.8 or higher in my personal experience. Another option you have as well is to exclusively book with a superhost, and this is somebody who has shown exceptional service to their guests, and they are considered the top tier of Airbnb hosts out there, and they have to meet stricter requirements than your average Airbnb host out there. So that is another option as well, is to solely look for superhosts, and you can conduct a search on Airbnb where it only shows you listings available from these superhosts. The next tip I have, guys, is a simple one, and it can keep you out of trouble. Read reviews of the place beforehand. It's very simple, guys, but people who stay in these Airbnbs will leave public reviews that other guests can read. So if you are skeptical about a given location, guys, just glance through the reviews and see if anything jumps out to you. Next, I would say contact the host beforehand and let them know about any questions that you have. If you're worried about whether or not the door has a lock on it, or what's the parking going to be like, or what's the neighborhood, it is up to the host to make sure to answer these questions for you. So any reservations or concerns that you have, guys, reach out to your Airbnb host and communicate with them, and hopefully they will be able to alleviate those concerns for you, especially if they are a superhost. And then finally, guys, as I said, very important, look at the location of your Airbnb before you book it. When you're on the Airbnb site, guys, you can very easily look at a map of the general area of where these Airbnbs are. And so even if you find a listing that has beautiful photos and it looks like a great place, always check out the neighborhood your Airbnb is in, as that is a mistake I have made before, and I stayed in a not so desirable location as a result. But overall, guys, I will say this, as both an Airbnb guest and an Airbnb host, I have hosted dozens of people and I have stayed at dozens of Airbnbs. I have found it to be very safe and overall a high quality experience for me. Once in a while, you will run into a snag, but nothing major in my experience. I do believe if you follow the steps outlined in this video, you can minimize some of the risk associated with Airbnb. But at the end of the day, if you don't feel safe about it, if you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to use it, as there are other options available to you. If you guys do want to grab that $40 Airbnb credit towards your first stay, that's the top link down in the description below. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.